All right, Brian Bonilla. Oh my goodness. What a great episode we just recorded. How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I think we're knocking it out the park with guests so far. Anselmo's great listen, man.
Anselmo Ramos, founder, creative chairman at, say it, Brian.
Gut, in case you haven't heard.
Yep.
The Gut Network, whichever way you want to say it,
Yeah.
Um,
Incredible stuff. I think, we did this. What you'll see, everybody will see that we recorded this in the content cave, like 500 square feet, breaking entering headquarters, 435 East 12th Street. Come stop by, send us snacks, goodies, merch. But it's so much fun. Like to have you here, have Anselmo, just this titan in this creative industry. We talk a little bit about his background, where he grew up in Brazil, becoming one of the most influential figures in advertising today. What else did we talk about, Brian? I think like
one big way, like when he was talking about manifestation and how that plays into like his career, and I think it was interesting advice to see. I think he has always had that kind of nature since growing up, where he grew up. And yeah, I just think I thought that was a big takeaway for me. And then just talking about like the agency, how he transitioned throughout his career and how he still stays relevant in what's happening in the world. Obviously when you're the founder and you're at the top of an agency, it's hard to sometimes like stay involved, hands-on. So that was interesting.
Yeah, they're opening up a lot of offices. We talked a little bit about their acquisition, I believe, with Globant. His philosophy of bravery, transparency, and intuition. It's good stuff. So I'm really pumped that we were able to make this happen. Thank you, Brian. And anything else we want to add before we kick it to the show?
No, I think just enjoy the listen and enjoy it.
Cool. All right. Kick it, Mikey.
So is this okay, or should I do like here, like this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Test.
1, 2, 3, testing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We're good. I'll come it off. You're good to go. All right. Anselmo Ramos, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, Breaking with Brian Bonilla, because we're in person here. We're happy to have you, sir. Welcome to Content Cave. How you doing today?
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gino and Brian, thank you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for like stopping by. Gino, do you want to talk a little bit about where we are right now? Like,
yeah.
What's the space like?
So we usually do this virtually, through like Google Meet or Riverside, but we're in the Content Cave. This is Breaking and Entering's headquarters, 435 East 12th Street. So if you ever want to stop by, listeners, come on by. But we're in the East Village here. We moved in about 2 months ago to do this full time. And you're our first guest. In person.
Yeah, it's very cozy.
You like it?
Yeah, it's amazing.
You can say what.
I'm having coffee, sparkling water. It's very fancy. Thanks,
You're always
man.
welcome.
That's a very nice description. I appreciate it. No, thanks again. And we have a lot to talk about. The reason I think partly why we wanted you to stop by in this space was because, you've started one of the in the last 5 years, what a crazy run with your agency. And, you had I believe humble beginnings and you had David and then Gut and just so many different starts and then starting a new thing and starting new things. So I just kind of I thought it would be symbolic a little bit to be in the beginning of what is Breaking and Entering full time for Gino and to have you here for that. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
I guess to start, Gut, how many years? 6 years now about?
We're going to turn 7 in April next year. Yeah.
Wow.
6.5.
I guess walk me through the beginning stages of when you were thinking about getting into advertising. and you know, like what actually led you to be inspired to start working in advertising to begin with?
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up in Brazil, right? I'm originally from Brazil, American by choice. So, you know.
Do you regret that choice?
No, not at all. I'm paying taxes. I'm voting. That's very important right now. So I'm doing my part. So I grew up in Brazil, and my childhood was a very creative environment. Like my mom, she's still a piano teacher, and my dad, he used to be an engineer, mechanical engineer, but he would do oil painting, like in the weekends. So it was very creative. And one day I found out my dad's collection of Mad magazine, right? I was like, this is amazing. It's so creative, all the comics and all the ideas. And I always like to draw and write. So I started to submit ideas to Mad magazine, and I'm still waiting for a reply, you know? And so I always liked that. And then when I was in 6th grade, my mom sent me to this weird German school, Waldorf. It's a Waldorf pedagogy, Rudolf Steiner. And it's a really interesting environment because basically you have no grades, 0 grades, and it's very creative. So you have classes of gardening, singing, acting, painting, drawing, knitting.
Okay.
You know, I can knit a sweater for you if you want, right?
Look, don't tell me with a good
I still know how to knit. You know, my knitting skills are amazing. So that was so creative. And of course, that had a huge influence in me. And then there was a period that my mom got really radical with that philosophy. She got rid of TV, you know, from the house. So I grew up without TV for many, many years. So that forced me to start reading like crazy. So I read everything. And I think that's why I became a writer. And I always liked brands in general. So when it was time for me to choose a profession, I said, okay, I think advertising makes sense. You know, I can come up with ideas and get paid for it. So yeah, I like brands. So let's do it. Perfect choice, you know.
Did you like feel like you're missing out when you're like with TV and things like that? Like, did you have friends that were like talking about like shows they were on, or like, I'm curious how that felt. Like,
you ostracized from the friend groups because you didn't know what was going on the TV?
No, because all my friends were also in this weird German school, but I had some friends that had TV, right? Yeah. So I would sneak out and go to their place and watch all the American TV shows dubbed into Portuguese.
Oh, wow.
You know, like Chips and The Incredible Hulk and $6 Million Man and all those TV American shows. And so I found a way to watch TV.
Yeah, for sure. No, I didn't know if you were going to ask something.
No. So you decided then when it was time to make this decision, you narrowed it down to advertising. Yeah. Is that an easy narrow down choice? Did you want to go into more of a creative, like be an artist of some sort or an author of some sort, novelist of some sort? How did you get to advertising?
No, it was advertising. I just loved it. Also in Brazil, we're very exposed to advertising. Like Brazilian advertising is part of pop culture. Like my mom knows the names of the most famous, Brazilian, ad people or used to. Nowadays, I think it's less. It's not like that anymore. But like my mom would know who is Washington Oliveto or Nizam Guanais or Fabio Fernandes or Marcelo Serpa. So it's just very different. It's just closer to, the general pop culture.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you're very exposed to that all the time.
But you celebrated the people that were making the ads in Brazil. Like you're saying your mom understood some of the best advertising people. Is that true?
Yeah. It's like if your mom knows who is Dan Wyden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if your family, it's like your family knows who is Dave Droger.
Right. Was that just your family or was that like...
No, everyone. Everyone. Well, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of really great Brazilian, like, advertising people, like just in the industry. I noticed that like when I came in, like, oh yeah, it's like a whole different, like there's like the Brazilian kind of like culture of advertising that stands out, really well.
I think also, back in the day, it was very TV driven. Mm-hmm. There was no media fragmentation. So it was easier to capture everyone's attention.
Right.
It's a big country. I think it's not the same nowadays. Nobody knows me in Brazil. Like, nobody knows anyone. Advertising has become a more normal profession. You have to deliver, you have your clients,
Right.
you do the ads. It's just not a profession. It's cool,
Right.
but you don't have that rock star,
Right.
status that we used to have.
Do you think that's like kind of a problem in the industry? Like, that there isn't that kind of rock star feel that used to exist at all with the industry?
No, I think it's fine. I mean, we only do ads. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not really glamorous what we do. We just try to do the best we can. We try to do great ads, not boring ads, but it's not glamorous what we do. It's not Hollywood.
Look, the reason I laugh is because like that answer would be so different for like each ad person I would ask. Like,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like
Yeah.
it's so funny. Like,
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you decided that advertising was the right path for you, then what's next? Like, how did you plot this out that you were going to break in? What were the next steps for you once you realized this was the industry?
Then I just became obsessed about it. And I would buy expensive advertising annuals, like especially the One Show and D&AD and Communication Arts. I had no money. I was a junior writer in Brazil, and I would spend all my money buying all those expensive annuals. Yeah.
Investing in your knowledge.
Yeah. And they would take forever to arrive in Brazil, like imagine back then, and I would open them and smell like, and for me, it was a smell of almost like an unattainable world, because it was I was just studying everything and trying to learn English, through them. And, so Fallon McElligott, Abbott Vickers, like, great work coming from the US and the UK, especially. And I would just study every page. I knew every agency. I knew every writer, every art director, creative director. I became that was the beginning of my ad nerdness.
Right.
I became an ad nerd.
Right.
I would watch everything, read everything. And, so I became obsessed about advertising.
Yeah. That's what I say. It's like you have to nerd up and know this industry. You have to know the best work, understand like who became before you and was a star and makes the best stuff, develop some taste.
Yeah.
And then you have to actually start practicing. So where were you getting that practice experience? How were you building up your skill set early on?
I was just writing like crazy, trying to write. At that time, it was all about the headline. Mm-hmm. You had to know how to write a good headline. Right.
Which I do think a lot of people still operate that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the same time, a lot of writers nowadays don't know how to write a headline.
What's your quick tip on how to write a better headline? Is there like a framework that you do or just practice? You just kind of.
I think it's practice. I also think it depends on the brand and it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to make me laugh? Are you trying to make me think? Are you trying to provoke me? It depends on the brand. There's this book about The Economist, and it's just a collection of all the headlines that Abbott Vickers used to write, including David Abbott himself for Economist. And it's just a beautiful lesson on copywriting.
Right.
Amazing headlines. But, it's about craft. But, like nowadays, sometimes when we talk to young people coming to this industry, sometimes they don't know advertising history, right? They're not interested. Yeah. And they're not, sometimes, some of them have their obsession about advertising, but it's very rare to find their obsession nowadays because you have so many things going on in your life that you just like everything. And I like advertising, but I also like movies and I like TikToks and I like a lot of other things. So that single-minded obsession about one thing is not as common, I think.
Does that like turn you off like from like if you were looking at hiring someone and they don't have that type of obsession, does that like automatically kind of take them out of the running, or do you have to put in new factors to consider?
No, not necessarily. We're always looking for talent and we're always looking for different people. And we're looking for people that have our core values of courage, transparency, and intuition. But we're also looking for that spark in their eyes. You know, we want to see that spark in their eyes. We're looking to see if they're hungry,
Right.
if they have potential, and if they really want to go far in the profession, you know, if they really love advertising, because we are a bunch of ad nerds. And so we're trying to look for other ad nerds out there.
Yeah. You do a good job at that. I mean, I've talked to some of your employees in the past, and they seem to all have that hunger, that drive to want to make good work. And that's hard to find those people. I feel like it's rare now, and it seems like you got a good amount of them.
Yeah, it's very hard to find them. Yeah.
Well, I would say you're also really good at like, because you're good at obsession, right? Like within a good way, right? And you're also good at like manifestation, which we've talked a lot about. And like, you've obviously like the list that you've made when you started got like, you know, that's I feel like we've written about that a lot, but like, you know, you made that list where you're like, by year 5, I want to be this, right? And you made the next 5. And how did you, like, is that something you learned from like your family, or like the idea of manifestation, like, or like how did that kind of become part of like who you are?
I think the first time I did that was when I was at Ogilvy, Brazil, even before David. And it's just the power of writing down your thoughts and believing that one day they can happen. So I strongly recommend that for everyone. Just write down.
Check out my fridge there.
Oh, really? Okay,
Jim,
cool.
you want to pull that?
Okay.
Well, I don't like tape, so I take yeah.
Okay.
The last one is bench 225 by.
It's okay. Well, the first step is to writing it down, right? And believing it's possible.
It's got to be realistic, right?
It has to be.
Does it have to be realistic?
Well, it needs to be attainable.
Okay.
Right? It needs to feel attainable, but it's a fine line because it needs to feel attainable, but also almost impossible. Right? So if your dream doesn't scare you, then you're not dreaming big enough. So you need to feel like, oh, can I really do this? I don't know. Maybe I can. So, but it needs to be attainable. Otherwise, you know, it doesn't make any sense. But I strongly recommend just writing down all your goals, but you have to write down. It's not only thinking about it. There's something really powerful about just writing everything down because it makes you commit to it, right? And then I go a step further. I just make them public, you know, because that makes me accountable.
Right.
I feel that now I have to deliver on them. Otherwise, I'm going to look really stupid.
Yeah. Sorry, or did you want to like go through?
No, I was just curious that I want to go back and just understand how you got, what was your first job in advertising? What was the first agency? And who's your first creative partner? Just paint us a picture of young Anselmo in the agency first time.
My first job was actually in studio. I wasn't a writer. I was just in a studio. It's a very tiny shop, like 20 people, and just, you know, doing like, you know, painting things and doing the letter sets. I don't know how do you call that. It's just like you are basically composing the layouts of the newspapers and magazines. It was very physical work. It was studio work. And then after a while, I said, okay, you know what? I don't like this. I want to be a writer. And then I just left. And then I started to look for a copywriter job. And then I found it. And then it was, again, a very tiny agency in Brazil. I was a writer.
Yeah.
And then I was there for a couple of years. And then when I was 24, I left Brazil to Lisbon. And then I went to Lisbon. And that's when I won my first Lion. And then I was hooked forever.
At 24, you won your first Lion?
Yeah. Yeah. And then after Lisbon, I went to Madrid. I was in Madrid for 3 years. So I was in Europe for 4 years. And then I moved to the US when I was 28. And that was like a dream. Oh my God, I'm in the US now, you know, and now I have to write in English for the first time. And my English was really bad. You know, when I came here at 28, I kept learning and studying. And then I was a writer in English, you know, that was a dream. And then I was here for 8 years. And then I moved back to Brazil for Ogilvy.
Right.
And then after Ogilvy, we started David. And then after David but yeah, so I was 12 years abroad. And I really recommend an international experience, you know, especially for writers, because it makes you a better writer, I think, because it makes you more conceptual. because you don't know the grammar as well, and you don't know the play of words, you don't know all the puns. So you have to be really conceptual. You have to find an idea that travels, that an idea that works anywhere.
Like that. Do you feel like it's harder for people to break in these days? Like, I feel like the path is so different than what it used to be for people. What would you recommend as the best way to get at the agency that you want to be?
Yeah. If you were starting out today, how would you break in?
I think you need to find something. You need to put yourself on your book, on your portfolio. Like whatever you do that's different, show that. We hired a couple of people in the past because they had unique skills. Like example, yes, there was the portfolio, but the person would also do stand-up comedy. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Can I see the videos of you performing? Okay, great. Right. Hire. So try to show who you really are. Don't try to show like, the kind of work that you think that God will like to see. No, just show me who you are. If you like poetry, show me your poems. Like just show me your full self. We are hiring, and we're always looking for talent, but it's all about who you are. Show me your true self. That's my recommendation.
Well, I know, I've, seen you do interviews and like you talk a lot about, being, like involved in the internet, know what's happening in pop culture so you can create something that's relevant, reactvertising, all that stuff, right? Like, now that like you're at a point now where like we were talking earlier where you're like you're traveling to this office, right, to open a new office and back and forth Singapore and Spain, right, as well. How do you stay still involved in pop culture like when you're at that level now? Because I feel like it's easier when you're coming up and you're still hungry as to prove yourself, right? So
it's hard. It's hard because I'm traveling and I'm talking to clients. I'm trying to create the gut culture. It's very hard to stay on top of everything that's happening in pop culture. However, everything that's really interesting and different will get to you if we spend enough time on the internet. You see the main stuff, and also I have 2 daughters, so they help me, like saying, hey, this is happening, that's happening. You just need to find the time. Right. So, we need to do everything. We travel, we listen to people, we try to inspire them, provoke them. We're there for our talent, for our clients. I also need to find time to watch The Substance and the Menendez brothers. And I have to, because everyone's talking about these things. I need to know what it is. So I force myself to spend some time where culture is, but also, I'm in a point right now that, I used to be an ad nerd. Now I need to be a business nerd and all sorts of nerd, right? A data nerd, an entrepreneur nerd. And then I have a bunch of ad nerds that work at God, that they are doing the job that I used to do. Right. So my job is to create the right environment for them to thrive. Right.
Right. No, it's interesting, right? And then, the Globant news, like Globant acquiring obviously got, like, where is that at this point? Like now that has it been almost a year now? Like,
it's been a year.
Yeah. So what can you update us on, right? Because I feel like the problem when I see is like when agencies get acquired, they can't talk as much about like what they're up to or like, what's going on. I know like Droga 5, right? Like Accenture is an example. Like, what can you update us on? Like what's changing? What can we expect?
It's been a year now since we became partners with Globant, and it's been amazing because in one hand, nothing has changed. So Gaston and I are still operating. We still report to Andrea because the CEO. So nothing has changed. And it's been great because it's a very strategic and complementary partnership. They are a tech company. They don't do what we do and vice versa. So we are learning from them and they're learning from us, right? And also a lot of cross-selling opportunities are starting to happen.
Okay.
We're starting to get to know each other, right? And then on the other hand, a lot of things have changed, because now the way Gaston and I feel is that in a really weird way, we have even more freedom now. Why? Because the indie spirit never dies. But what happens now is we feel we have more support to accomplish all our dreams.
Okay.
Because before, every time we would open a gut office, it was like, okay, here we go again, investing our own money to open another gut office. It's a lot, right? It's a lot of pressure. And now we still have the pressure, but we have help. We're not alone anymore. Right. So we would open a gut office every year in average. Right. This year, for the first time, we opened 3 offices. We opened Madrid, New York, and now Singapore. And I think it is related to the fact that we're not alone anymore. We have Globen, right, alongside, helping us, supporting us, so we can go even faster now.
Yeah,
we can
with the same fire, it seems like.
Yeah,
with the backing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's liberating,
right? And I know, like, we're gonna have some rapid questions and stuff like that planned out, but like, I think the office stuff is really interesting, because I think you guys open an office more than I've seen. Like a lot of agencies open offices.
Love the graphics.
Right.
You launch a new office too.
Oh yeah.
City and the logos.
Oh yeah, that's from Jessica Walsh and her company and Walsh.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
They're great. Yeah.
Did you pick that?
Yeah. How did you?
Well, it's interesting. Again, it's all about dreaming big. Mm-hmm. When we were about to open GUT, I met Stefan Zagemeister in a conference. And I was like, Stefan Zagemeister, what if he designs our logo? Yeah. Why not? Right? Mm. So I asked him, and he said, yeah, I would love to. Let's talk about it. I'm like, okay, cool. And then he said, all I need is, what's her name? The name of the company. I said, GUT. I said, okay, great. That's a very clear name. I need 3 values. I was ready. I said, courage, transparency, and intuition. And they all come from our name. And he said, great. Okay, I'm briefed. And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, okay, Stefan, what's your process? He said, well, I'll think for 2 months and I'm going to show you 1 option.
Yes.
Wow. I'm like, wow, that's not my reality.
Where is this human from?
Stefan?
Yeah.
He's one of the, most famous designers alive. Stefan Zagemeister. I think he's from Austria. Okay. I think he's from Austria. Yeah. But he's based in New York. And he used to work with, he was like, Zagemeister and Walsh, right? They used to work together, Stefan and Jessica. And then he left. I think he's doing more, not commercial work. He's more into art now. And Jessica now has her own company.
Yeah. That process is interesting. I'm not sure how, if there was a bunch of ideas that you only saw one idea, right?
Well, we saw 2, because when they presented to us, they said, well, because you guys work in advertising, we're going to show you 2. But when we saw the logo, the spiral intestines logo, we said, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. The other one was pretty good too.
Can you show us that?
We can show you. Yeah, we can show you. It's a pretty good too, but it doesn't move. Mm-hmm. We love the fact that it was moving, it was alive.
Yeah. Right.
It was very gutsy. Right. So we loved it.
And I asked, it's so interesting, right? Because you're very intentional, right? Like you had your, this is why the manifestation is important, right? Like you had your stuff ready. And, we were talking a little bit about like, there's so many agencies launching now, right? And I don't know if a lot of agencies nowadays have the same ideology going into, their launch these days. I feel like, there's a new agency every like other week now.
Yeah.
It's like people you don't know, or like people that have like a niche, which is also good. But like, I'm curious what you think about all these like independent agencies opening up and how they're opening up.
I think it's great. I think it's good for the industry. I love indies, and we're still indie in our hearts. We still have the indie spirit. And I think we need that, because they're the future of our industry. And I think what's interesting is when you have an agency starting with a clear vision. The problem with most agencies, I think, is they don't know what they stand for. So they don't know exactly what kind of work they want to do, what kind of talent they're trying to attract, and what kind of clients they're looking for, right? And when you have that clarity, everything else is easier, right? It's interesting. I was thinking that the other day, how many agencies doing great work nowadays, they stand for something when it comes to their name: uncommon, mischief, rethink, right? So they stand for something,
right?
And it's very clear just by looking at their name,
right?
And another thing is a coincidence,
right?
So in our case, from day one, we said, okay, our name says it all. All right, we're going to be about bravery. We're going to be a brave agency for brave clients, and that's it. And we always say, we always say that to our talent: when there's no one to call, when you don't know what to do, when you are lost and you need guidance, just remember our name. Our name is the North Star. Right. We're called God. And then remember our name, and then you make the decision.
Were there any like as you were going up in the industry, like any big lessons learned, any mistakes you made? Because we talk a lot about successes, right, in this industry, but like any notable mistakes that like really stuck with you that like you learned something from, or anything like that?
I got plenty. I'm not even 30 yet.
No, man, we make mistakes all the time. I think the difference is when you make a mistake and you are indie, you can just correct faster because it's up to you. So when you are indie, you make mistakes faster because you don't need to call New York or London to make a mistake. You just make the mistake,
right. Right.
And we're really good at that. But we course correct very quickly. And you just try to not repeat those mistakes. But we're making mistakes every day. Right. But we don't dwell on them. We just move forward. We're very fast, right? So we just execute. You keep executing. So you don't have time to even, sometimes you don't have time to even correct your mistakes properly because you're ready to the next one. You're just moving, right? But yes, I think everyone makes mistakes, but the freedom to learn from them and to avoid making them, it's everything. But, if you're not in the arena, if you're not trying, you're not going to make mistakes.
Right.
So the fact that we're making mistakes is a great sign because it means that you're out there trying. Right.
Well, I wanted to ask about, I know it's kind of sensitive, but like the Kraft Heinz situation, like, now that it's been some time, like, I don't know if you could talk about like,
I can't
learning from that or like anything that you can. From that.
I can't talk about that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. Do you want to get into rapid fire questions, Gino?
Yeah, that's right. Got my notes here.
Good. Shoot.
All right, we're going to transition here into the rapid fire questions. So a couple fun ones.
Okay.
You got to answer them rapid from your gut.
Okay. I'll try.
Which city would you want to retire in anywhere in the world?
I don't want to retire.
What's your favorite breakfast food?
Scrambled eggs and bacon.
What's your favorite dinner food?
Pasta.
Best city for aspiring creatives in the world.
Ooh. You gonna piss some people off?
No, you have a lot of cities. It's not. I mean, it's just one. It's just one.
Yeah, one. Pushing on that 3-second count.
I'll go to Singapore.
Okay. If you weren't in advertising, what would you do?
Movies. Movie making, yeah.
Movie making. Final answer. Favorite musician or band right now?
Right now? Huh. Interesting. I don't think I have a favorite one.
Chapel Rum was the answer we were looking.
Really?
Why is that?
Okay. Is that your favorite one? Wow. Okay.
What was the last show you binge watched?
Them Menendez brothers. Yeah, just did.
What is the best meal you can make?
I don't cook because my wife is a chef.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't.
How about your wife's favorite meal? Like your meal.
Brazilian food.
Okay.
Yeah, Brazilian food. Moqueca.
Okay.
We need answers here.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look that up.
Okay, cool.
Do you have any hidden talents?
Other than knitting.
Knitting, we'll take it.
Okay.
I mean,
that's pretty.
That's pretty good. Do you still knit?
Not as
You don't
much.
find the time
Not as
to-
much. I need to go back to knitting while I watch Menendez Brothers. You know what I mean?
That's a good idea.
That would be amazing.
Live stream it,
Right?
You know,
Binge watching and knitting at the same time. I need to get back to it. Running.
And your favorite drink? To be alcoholic or not?
Negroni.
yes.
But you know why Negroni?
Why?
I have a good answer for that.
Okay.
Because Negroni is 1/3 Campari, 1/3 vermouth, sweet vermouth, and 1/3 gin, right? If you think about life is 1/3 sweet, 1/3 bitter, and 1/3 tough. It's just like a Negroni.
I like that.
Okay. There were also some questions.
That was very deep.
Negroni's my favorite.
Yeah.
Negroni's my favorite.
More Negroni.
I don't have as deep of a reason for it. It's just like I just think it's like good for any occasion. You know
I
what I mean?
agree.
Like you
Yeah.
can get it at like conference.
Yeah, it's
It's a
great.
casual drink. There are also some questions, you know, I don't have my papers with me, so I'm like, yeah, that we were like coming up with like some fun
Go for it,
kind
yeah.
of like topics,
Yeah.
you know.
What's the favorite, like your favorite ad you've ever made or been a part of? You've led the team.
I think it's still real beauty sketches
Okay.
because of the impact it had in the industry.
Right.
It was one of the first social experiments, and we learned so much from it. You know, and the biggest learning was embrace uncertainty, because the problem in our industry is you wouldn't know everything ahead of time. You wouldn't know it's going to work.
Yeah.
But nobody knows anything. So when you embrace uncertainty in a very intentional way, you can accomplish something different. So yeah.
I learned about that. I studied advertising in Illinois, like where I went to college, and
Yeah.
they showed that ad in class case study. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was great.
What's the favorite ad that you did not make?
Guinness Surfer. It's just, it's so beautiful. It's like, it's Jonathan Glazer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's back then, he was an amazing director. Now he's winning Oscars for The Zone of Interest. Well deserved. And it's just like everything, the writing, the lighting, the editing, the soundtrack, the back shot. It's just like, it's just perfection.
Do you get like pissed, like does part of you get pissed off when you see something that you didn't make that you were like, oh shit, like I wish we could have done something like that?
Yeah, not pissed off, but you know, that feeling of I wish I've done it is a great feeling because it's just healthy envy. Right. You look at it and go, oh my God, it's so beautiful. I don't think I'll ever do something like that. You know?
Right.
Yeah, it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
I'm pumped for this next question. Okay. And this, you can take some time on this, but the prompt is, I need you to assemble an advertising Avenger dream team. 5 people total, alive or dead. Who's on this team? And we're assuming you're included. So you got 5 other people, agency, dream team, live or dead. Who you want on it?
Oh my
That's a
God.
big question.
That's a big question. I don't know, man.
You can pass. You can definitely pass. Or give us like 1 or 2 people.
You have a lot of great people historically. It's just a lot. It'll be unfair to choose 5. I can't do that.
Should we do it, Brian? Should we assemble our dream team?
I think
you can do it. Yeah.
I think that could be a fun like podcast like episode one day. Like and
Yeah.
then you can submit your, if you think about it, submit your answers.
I'm
Oh,
Okay,
well,
well, he's
not
right here.
sure.
He's right here. You're
I'm
gonna.
not sure about
Of course,
that.
you're gonna pick that. He's right here. You're gonna.
Yeah, of course. When we do the episode, we'll see what I actually said.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll say one name. I think Cliff Freeman needs to be there. Okay, because his agency, what his agency did historically was just so funny, funny. It was just like very entertaining, right? So whatever the team is, you need Cliff Freeman there. He was just.
You want on that team? You know, you got the funny now. So you got.
He was trying.
He's trying
little by little
job.
together. No. He's doing a good job.
He's doing a good job. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't see what you're doing.
I got plenty more. Right? Any that you want to pick?
Yeah, there's so many. I feel like we actually that one.
How about this one? I mean, are you ever able to like turn it off and like truly let go, like disconnect with family, or is you're always thinking about ads and bettering the business? Because I know I struggled at being a founder, living in this wonderful kingdom here. I'm always thinking about it. It's tough for me to turn it off. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's tough. You don't really, because everything. I mean, I go back to the obsession thing. If you really like what you do, you're always thinking about it. So if I look at some of the ad nerds that we have at the agency, everything they're watching, everything they're seeing and reading, every trip they take, they're thinking, how can I use this for our brands? So it's a pretty sad life, right? But it's a beautiful life.
Yeah.
Because it's beyond their control. You know, it's very hard to, because this is the problem, right? If you look at this professional, like, okay, at Friday, 5 p.m., I'm going to disconnect and I'm not going to think about advertising.
Right.
That's fine. That's fine too.
Right.
You know, but a lot of people that we know that really love this business, it's beyond their control because they're watching the Menendez brothers or the Substance and they're thinking, maybe I can use this for, you know, some brand, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know. You never know.
Jerry Seinfeld clip when he's talking about comedy, he's always thinking about
it's the same thing.
That he enjoys.
Exactly. It's the same thing. So in our case, you are just living life, trying to use your life experiences for brands. That's it. So it's very hard to disconnect, you know?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because like, how do you then like think about like your mental health, right? Like, how do you manage that? You know, and like, do you have any advice for people that like are obsessed, want to stay obsessed, but then like want to have not you don't necessarily, I think, need always the work-life balance, but like, how do you keep your mental sharp? You know? Yeah,
I think you need to make sure that you have breaks, right? It's very important to travel. It's very important to disconnect. But here's the thing: even when you disconnect, even if you say, "I'm not going to be thinking about advertising," whatever you're living, right? Whatever you're doing, it's going to be part of your subconscious.
Right.
So when you get back to work on Monday, you have more inputs than you had on Friday.
Right.
So everything is related.
Yeah.
Right. So life is work. Work is life. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So the more inputs you have, the more outputs you can generate.
Right.
So, you know, even when you are not working, your subconscious is working. So, you know, you can be more intentional or less intentional, but it's always there.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, as a journalist, like, I feel like it took me a while to like find the space to not think about it 24/7, right? Because breaking news and, you know, you read the news when you're not writing about it.
Yeah.
And you're, you know, like the news is always happening, right? There's local news and all these things, right? And it's like, you know, but then you want like healthy relationships and things like that, right? And it's crazy. Like it's you know, I'm still dealing with it. Like I'm still learning.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you ever stop, to be honest, but I don't know.
No, yeah. It's very hard to stop, you know. Like that's why. Do you think about retiring one day? Well, it's hard. You know, I'm going to be on a beautiful beach for like a week. And then I'm like, I know, man, I need to do something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I also had a question that it's not on the paper, but you were talking earlier about like social media and all these things. Like, do you feel like social, like AOR is almost like the new creative AOR? Like social is becoming like the lead driver almost in a lot of ideas and things like that.
I think sometimes, yeah. I think it's interesting. Yeah. You know, that has started, you know, with us that has happened, right? Like, hey, you are the social AOR now.
Right.
But I still like just AOR because that includes social, right?
Of course.
Because when you are the AOR, you just have that responsibility, you know, like it's a shared responsibility with the client. So your problem is my problem. You know, if you're not selling for whatever reason, we want to know why. And we want to know if we can help you from a communications perspective. So it's just more commitment. Right. And so we still love the classic AOR model. Okay. And sure, sometimes we can have social AOR, but if you have AOR, social is part of it, you know, in many cases.
Yeah. And I feel like people are different, like good at different types of social now. Is there social now? It's like, you know, maybe you're good at TikTok, or maybe you're good at understanding Reddit, social listening, not as good as the execution and things like that. And I think for marketers, they don't always understand, all that. Like they need all that, you know, in one agency.
It's not either or.
Right.
Yeah. You need all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing about modern marketing is, you know, which is related to hackvertising or reactvertising and all those new forms of advertising, is nobody knows anything. Right. And that's something that we always talk about. You know, William Goldman said that. William Goldman was a writer and a director and a producer in Hollywood. And he was talking about Hollywood. Nobody knows anything. That's why you have so many sequels, because, okay, that worked. Do another one, you know, and do another one, you know, but nobody knows anything also applies to what we do. We really don't. And that's why, sure, you can have, you know, performance driven, and you can measure things, and there are ways to measure things and know if it's working or not. But really, really brilliant work, you really don't know. Right. You have to put it out there and see what happens and learn from it. You know, sometimes we say, oh my God, we have something amazing in our hands. People who love this. No one talks about it.
No one cares.
You know, crickets.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes we have something in our hands and we go, well, we don't know. I don't think it's that great. Let's just try, see what happens. And people love it.
Yeah.
You don't know.
It's almost like music. Like, people almost leave a certain song out of an album. They put it back in last minute and it becomes like their number one hit. You never know. Right.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're good on time too. So just let me know.
3:54 right now. How you have to get out of here right at 4?
No, I can.
Okay,
I can stay a bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah. I was curious, like, what questions do you ask somebody that you're hiring? Whether it's somebody that's junior level, is there like a go-to question that you have when you're talking with somebody?
We have a list of questions that we ask. Some of them we try to see if the person would be a good fit in our culture, right? So we're trying to see if the person has our values of courage, transparency, and intuition. So yeah, so the HR department, they have questions related to those three values.
The process of writing those?
Yes, at the beginning of God, yes, we wrote some questions down, and those are the questions that we should be asking.
Any of them? Is there one that comes to mind?
No, it's very basic. I mean, sometimes it's more like a direct question, like what do you think about intuition? Example. Mm-hmm. Do you consider yourself an intuitive person? Mm-hmm. Give us some example that you follow your intuition.
Okay. Like your gut reaction.
Yeah. We're trying to see if you're connected to your gut, right? That's one example. And then, if it's about the creative department, we try to see if they like this business, if they're really into advertising, if they are ad nerds.
Who does that?
Well, we ask, for instance, what's your favorite ad of all time? You'll be impressed, like how many people don't have an answer for that.
It's funny. Yeah, I've had friends who got asked that question and they didn't have an answer off the top, and they said like a brand or something, and which I think you can if you explain like why the brand is like so important to you. But like,
because here's the thing, right? Like sometimes we're interviewing someone, like imagine like a writer or an art director, and you ask that question, hey, what's your favorite ad of all time? And if you don't have an answer, it's complicated, right? Yeah. I mean, unless you're really starting out, that's fine. But like if you're...
Yeah, somebody with a strong POV, passion, a reaction to that question, to love this business. And
I want you to give me 10 different... Yeah, give me 10 different ads. Yeah. But don't say, oh, I like what Nike is doing. or don't say, I just like what Gut is doing. You know, no, be specific, right? Tell me 10 different ads that you love. So we're trying to find passion again. Like, you know, we're trying to find a spark in your eyes. You know, it's very, and sometimes the language that we use in this internal language, we say that candidate is gutsy or not, you know, oh, she was very gutsy or he wasn't really gutsy.
Right.
And just by saying that word, we know exactly what we mean.
You know, that's funny because you guys have that terminology, like it's like ingrained. I think you're one of the few agencies where it's like, if I talk to anyone at Gut, they kind of have like, it's ingrained, you know, like
Brian, we have an entire language.
It's crazy.
We have an entire language. We have X-ray, gutsy, gut punch. We have an entire gut language, you know?
Yeah. Do you have like a book where it's like, this means this, this means this?
Like a dictionary, like a dictionary.
Yeah.
Maybe we should.
Maybe you should.
Maybe we should.
Yeah.
We try to capture our thinking in our culture and really write down stuff.
Yeah.
Because as we grow, with 10 offices now, 700 people, our biggest challenge is how to keep the culture alive because we cannot be everywhere, you know, all the time. So you need tools. You need to give tools so people can be gutsy, right? And it's about what you stand for and our mission, our values, our principles. We have a bunch of principles. And it's even, we were talking the other day, it's even time for us to capture new principles.
Okay.
Because we're going to a new phase now, right? After the global partnership and now with 10 offices, we have new principles. It's time for us to capture them again, to start writing them again, because we're going to a second phase of Gut.
You said I remember we spoke, you said something like 2030. Was it like you want to be the best agency in the world? Is that like, what's the next 5 years? You know, like, do you have something at the end of that?
Yeah, we still have that goal of becoming one of the most diverse, creative, and influential networks ever. And it's very uncomfortable to say that out loud, but we don't care. It motivates us. And that's the order. We believe that diversity leads to creativity and creativity leads to influence. You know, that's the order.
Right.
But yeah, we still have that goal.
Right.
How do you measure that? So like, how do you know if you hit that?
You mean diversity?
Also,
or
like
diversity you measure with data. And basically what we try to do at Gut is we try to reflect the country we are in. So the office needs to be a reflection of the country, at least, right? Then in terms of creativity, it's about award shows, right? And they basically tell you if you're performing or not. It's very
the point systems.
Yeah, it's very tangible if you're performing well or not. Influence is the hardest one, and it's the consequence of the other two. And influence is when you have the ability to make brands part of pop culture in a really meaningful way, right? When people are talking about your brand, and it's very, very hard. And that's the eternal goal. You know?
Right. Yeah. Well, speaking of influence, like, you know, you got to a point, right, where like you were posting a lot on social media, like you post like your thoughts, you know, and like
I used to post more.
Right.
I haven't been
stopped,
posting a lot.
right?
Yeah.
Why is that? Like, was there a certain moment like where?
I don't know. I think I've been so busy opening offices and with the global partnership and opening 3 offices in 1 year that I haven't had time to post, but you know, I need to go back to post. Yeah.
There was an AI Anselmo. I remember we spoke about that like 2 years ago. Someone like put your like tweets and stuff into like an AI.
Yeah.
And then was tweeting out as you. Like,
yeah, I know. That was weird.
Does it get weird for you? Like, cause you have like.
No, yeah, it was cool, but it was kind of off, you know? It was like the writing was weird and I don't know.
Right. It wasn't perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was like a couple of years ago.
It was. Nowadays,
it was even before this AI.
Nowadays, they could probably do the podcast like in your place. Like
maybe.
It's really you. How do you feel about AI? Like, are you guys using it?
We love it, man. We love
like,
AI.
How are you using it? Like,
we love it. The best creatives that got are embracing AI. like a lot. They're using it every day, right? They're not afraid of it because as a creative, every creative person is insecure by nature. We're all insecure.
Right.
Okay. Why? Because you wake up every day and you have to face the white page. You have to face the blank canvas and you don't know if you're going to have the ability to come up with a great idea or not every day. So every creative person is insecure by nature. So when you look at AI, you have basically two ways to look at it as a creative person. You can say, oh my God, it's going to destroy my career. It's going to take over. You know, I need to look for a different job. This is the end, right? It's a very pessimistic view.
Right.
Or you can say, oh my God, this is amazing, right? And I think the best creatives understand that it's just another tool and it's amazing. Because here's the thing, you are not going to be alone anymore. You know, you always have basically your entourage next to you. You're going to, you know, next to you from now on, you have a writer, an illustrator, an art director, a filmmaker, a musician, you know, all the time, 24/7.
Right.
So if you wake up at 3 a.m., you have all those people next to you to help you to come up with something.
Right.
So you're not alone anymore. And it's just a great feeling. You know, I wish I had AI when I was starting my career, you know, 30 years ago in Brazil. I didn't. I had only award show annuals.
Mm-hmm.
So AI, I think, is amazing. Now, if you are a bad creative, if you are a shitty creative, then yes, you should be worried because it's going to get to a point that you will replace,
right,
like, you know, average writers.
Right.
If you are a good writer, you are fine because you have a unique voice, and it's going to be very hard for, you know, AI to replicate your voice, right? So I think in a way, AI will make, you know, an authentic human voice even more valuable, right? So if you have a unique, if you are a unique writer, you're going to be able to charge a premium for that, right? Because it'll be more valuable.
Yeah. It will also, I do think there'll be less people that know how to write in a traditional way, right? Which isn't always a bad thing, right? Like some people need to work differently, you know, but there will be, I think, clients that still want that, you know, in the future. But there's the other side of like mass personalized content that like clients are, I see becoming more obsessed with, right? Like, are you seeing that like as a big focus, like from clients?
I think clients are learning how to use AI for their businesses. Every business is different. They are relying on us from a communication perspective, like to show them how we are going to use for them. Every client is different and they are in different stages of embracing AI. We're very lucky because we have Globin as a partner and they have an AI studio.
Right.
So we are learning a lot, right? I personally, because I have a writing background, I love ChatGPT, man. I talk to it all the time, brainstorming. What about this? What about that? You know, it's just like, it's great to bounce off ideas. You know, my daughters are telling me, Dad, you're obsessed with ChatGPT. Stop this shit, you know?
What a modern problem.
Yeah, but I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. You know, I was like, how could I live without this?
Right.
I do love it too.
Right?
I love it.
It's amazing.
Just to summarize, like volumes of content, like,
oh, it's great.
All these podcasts, like these are hour-long interviews.
Yeah.
So I've done 300 plus episodes that I can just have it all loaded up in there, write a book. And get all that information.
Right. That's what this is. This is data collection.
Yeah.
It's all this is.
It's incredible, man.
Are your daughters going to be in advertising, you think?
Well, I have two daughters, and Elena, she's going to NYU.
Oh.
And she's studying media, culture, and communications.
Okay.
So yeah,
Nice.
and Stella, the youngest one, she doesn't know yet what she wants. She's thinking about it. But
Director and copywriter duo.
Maybe. But the other day she told me, Dad, I'm thinking about communications. I'm like, oh my God, maybe both of them. You know, I don't know. No, I would love that. I would love that. But it's probably my fault because I only talk about ideas all the time, you know. So they're exposed to it. But
give them a brief.
Just as a kid, just like,
Look at this.
Yes. Maybe I've done that in the past.
I can't forget
But the great thing about them is, you know, they keep me in check. you know, like when we turned 5, we did this crazy thing. We took 450 people to Buenos Aires to celebrate our 5th year anniversary.
I did see that.
And it was insane. Our CFO said, I'm not paying for this shit. It's very expensive. So if you want to do it, you know, you and Gaston, you have to pay for it. And we did. And it was worth every cent. We were like for 3 days in Buenos Aires, celebrating, partying, learning from each other. You know, it was like every office gave a presentation. We had guest speakers. It was amazing, right? So I flew back and we had a recap video of the event. I showed that to my daughters and they watch it and they go, Dad, this is not an agency. It's a cult. Please don't share this video with anyone. It's embarrassing.
Don't worry.
So they're very, you know, yeah, I did. Yeah. I show it like in Cannes in front of everyone.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I remember the picture
that
got like memed a bit. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you saw it, Gino. It was like a picture of their whole theme, right? It was that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it was a weird shape. It was like a triangle. And, you know, we have this thing of wearing black. Yeah. So it was a coincidence that 450 people, you know, were wearing black that day. But it's basically a triangle full of people and all wearing black. So it's basically like a black triangle. So you can imagine the memes.
Yeah. It was like a beard.
Yeah.
It was like a dotty.
It was a goatee. It was a goatee, you know. Yeah.
But your daughter's tall. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
They were right.
Yeah. They're always right. I learn a lot with them.
Well, how can people reach out to you if they have any questions or want to learn more about gut? Where can they go and follow your journey as you go? How old are you guys now? You guys are.
We are 6.5. We're going to turn 7 in April next year.
Are you going anywhere special for that? Bringing everybody?
No, no, not next year. But we're thinking about doing something similar in maybe 2 years. So in 2026, we're thinking about maybe gathering everyone again. I mean, let's see. You know,
okay.
But
play it by ear.
Yeah, let's see. You know,
435 East 12th Street is my address. If you want to send an invite.
Okay. I'll write it down. Okay, I'll do that.
I can't accept anything because I'm a journalist. So.
Yeah.
You can't.
Podcaster.
Yeah, he's just.
But, you know, people can reach out to me at, you know, Instagram or Twitter, Anselmo Ramos, at Anselmo Ramos, or write me, Anselmo at gut.agency.
Yeah. Perfect. Cool, man. Look, this was great. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah.
How was it? Good?
409.
Yeah, this is great. That was great.